Tailgaters, you're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now going to take us into Ruston, Louisiana. The La Tech Bulldogs are up next for 2025 predictions. This has to be the year that they get it together and turn things around, or we could see the start of a new era in Ruston next year. As a head coaching standpoint, that is. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on the video and for helping to support the channel. If you want to support it even further, go down below, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will only ensure that you don't miss an upload during prediction season, and as we're winding down, you don't want to miss the rest of the teams that I'm doing, especially if I haven't done your favorite team yet. I'm a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, and if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, please give me a follow at TailgateNate29, Twitter, Instagram, and feel free to even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me in the channel in whatever way you may be doing so, and I want to apologize for the sound issue in the last iteration of this video. Normally, I don't re-upload videos and stuff like that, but hey, you guys got to hear what's going on with this program and with their head coach, Sonny Coombe. It has not worked out for Sonny Coombe so far, even throughout his entire head coaching career, but especially here. It mainly has been here, just 5 other games where he was the head coach at Texas Tech. Those didn't go well either. But while he has been at Louisiana Tech, 11-26. That is not going to cut it. That's not going to fly, especially with some of the talent that we're going to be talking about here today. This is the year that the LA Tech Bulldogs, I don't know why I said that, the La Tech Bulldogs need to get things back on track and need to start pushing this wagon in the right direction. They didn't make a bowl game last year, but as a 5-7 team, 6-win mark might be the bare minimum for this program. Otherwise, Sonny Coombe could be looking for a job, and the La Tech program could be looking for a job looking for a coach as they enter a new conference next year. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview. Offense over here to the left, defense over here to the right at the end of the video. We're going to go through the La Tech football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. And this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Bulldogs in 2025. Right down below me are returning production numbers. They are according to ESPN. They factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage, but it really isn't that high. And then down below that, recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are according to 24/7 Sports. I know we got audio now. I can see the levels rising. And so without further ado, let's dive on into the offense and talk about Tony Franklin's squad. There's consistency at the quarterback position, and Evan Bullock is going to see a return after really a good start to his collegiate career. Now, was a guy that threw only 5 passes in 2023, but I'm counting last year as his full start to his collegiate career. 301 pass attempts, threw for 2,107 yards, and this is the big number right here, 14 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. He was really, really efficient, also had a near 66% completion percentage, and I think you can only build upon that this season. Now, I do believe that Evan Bullock probably will, but he also has to be able to improve. There were moments where this offense was not great last year, and it just wasn't clicking on all cylinders. I think Evan Bullock is a guy that has got to take that next step, and I see that as pretty likely. In fact, I would be willing to bet, even though I'm not a betting man, not placing money on it, I'd be willing to bet that he does make that jump and serves himself as a very, very good starter for this Bulldog team last year. I mean, you throw in the other 100 passes that someone other than Evan Bullock threw last year, in 414 attempts, the passing attack as a whole had just shy of 3,000 yards. I think that's a number that Evan Bullock can absolutely get to with the touchdown to interception ratio. It stays as good as it did last year. You're going to have yourself a really efficient, really good starting quarterback, and he's got weapons returning behind him because your top 2 rushers, O'Miri Wiggins and Amani Givens, they both return to this running back room. Wiggins had 527 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Givens had 319 yards and 2 touchdowns last season. Those 2 guys, I think, are really good returning pieces. Depth is going to change, and here's the kicker with the running back room. Yes, you get your top 2 rushers back. The running room as a whole only got 3 yards per carry last year. Now, that obviously is in part to the running room, but it's in part to something else that we're going to talk about a little bit later. This is a running back group that has got to see their production increase, and that same thing that we're going to talk about later can apply to Evan Bullock as well. I'll tell you how later, but I want to tell you who Bullock is going to be throwing the football to this year. Your top 2 leading receivers. Well, neither of those two, because they are in the pros. You lose a dynamite weapon in True Edwards that had 85 catches for nearly 1,000 yards and led the team with 6 receiving touchdowns last year. You're also going to be losing Jimmy Holiday, who is off to the powerhouse in the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't know if I said it earlier, but Edwards is off to the Los Angeles Rams. Again, Holiday was another really good piece for the team last year. So, okay, who comes back? Well, Jay Wilkerson and Marlon Jackson are both going to be returning to this team. Those are 2 guys that were the 3rd and 4th leading wide receivers on this team last year. There's another name we're going to throw into the mix in a second, but they were 4th and 5th overall on that leaderboard, and they're going to be joined by really a massive haul of transfers. You're going to have Devin Gandy, who's a Sacramento State transfer, coming in and should play starting minutes beside Wilkerson and Jackson, Trey Averhart, Dane Benedicts, and your entire 3rd string unit is from the transfer portal. So this is a La Tech team that brings in a ton of transfer portal pieces to pair with some really good returners that they already have. Now, you would have liked to have Edwards and Holiday back, absolutely, but I think you still got a solid receiving room, including your lead tight end in Eli Finley. Last season for Finley, he was the 3rd leading receiver on this team, 314 yards and 2 touchdowns last season for the Bulldog tight end. Depth behind him is going to be new. It's all coming in through the portal. But with Eli Finley, I think you got yourself another really good returning receiving piece and a good piece back to this tight end room. Now let's get to the point of contention and the position that I have teased throughout here in sort of a very indirect way. And it's this offensive line. This offensive line needs to make substantial leaps forward. I have no doubt that Evan Bullock is going to do that. I think you have some solid pieces in this rushing room. And as far as the wide receiver room goes, despite what you lost, I think you still have a pretty good room and a lot of good weapons for Bullock to throw to. But guys, this offensive line was a big reason why the rushing attack was only able to get 3 yards per carry last year. Now, granted, you have to factor Evan Bullock into that as well, because he's not a guy that's going to run the football, and he took 130 the sack yardage loss, 130 yards of sack yardage, however you want to phrase that. Minus 130 is what his rushing stat looks like. However, that also reflects back on the offensive line because they allowed 33 sacks to Evan Bullock last year and 41 in total, which is just not going to fly. Absolutely is not going to fly. I think if this offensive line does not see some pretty significant improvement from last season, it's hard to believe that this offense is going to be much better than they were last year, even though I believe no matter what the offensive line does, Bullock is going to take a step in the right direction, and he's got good pieces around him. Guys, if this offensive line does not step up, this is an offense that is going to see its struggles just like it saw last season. Table the offense. Let's move on over to the defense. Your defensive coordinator in Luke Olson. The defense really overall did stand pretty tall. It allowed, I believe, just over 300 yards per game. The number might be around 310, right around 21, 22 points per game. That's kind of where you'd like to be at, maybe a little bit lower in the points per game department. But here's the thing that this defense really struggled with. It tackled pretty well for the most part, almost 850 tackles last year, but there was not a lot of sack production, only 21 sacks last year. And while they did recover 12 fumbles, they only forced 9 and they only intercepted 5 passes. So you can see where, look, even though the defense stood tall, imagine how much better it would be if there was consistent sack production and if the team was forcing a turnover or 2 every single game. I'm just saying, you continue to do what you did on the defensive side. Pointing the wrong way. You continue to do what you did on the defensive side last year, as well as just overall increase what I like to bunch together as the aggressiveness factor and get those momentum changing plays. I mean, baby, you're looking at a pretty darn good defensive unit and one that could be one of the best in Conference USA. It does have to fill in for some pieces, though, as your sack leader, David Blay, is going to be transferring off to Coral Gables in Miami to play ACC football with the Hurricanes. 6 sacks for him while being a top 10 tackler with 45 tackles. He is a very significant piece, and you lose a ton of depth in the defensive line room as well. So it's going to be guys, especially on the defensive interior, that were in the program last year that are going to need to take it a step up and play at a much higher level. Christian Davis, Zion Nason. Those are guys that are projected to start on the interior, and they both return. They have seen a lot of football as they're a senior and graduate, respectively. And you have transfers coming in on the outside. Donovan Riemann, or Ryman, however you pronounce the last name, is a defensive end transfer from Kansas State, and you get Caleb Sims over from East Texas A&M, where he was a pretty solid piece. Some good returners and transfers file in to the rest of the 2 and 3 deep, but it is overall a room where you're going to have to fill in transfers, and guys from last year are going to have to play bigger roles. As far as your linebacking room goes, your leading tackler and Zach Zimas is going to be gone. I probably butchered that last name as well. 84 tackles with a pass defended and a fumble recovered last year. However, Colby Fields is coming back, and he's going to lead what still is, I think, going to be a really strong unit. Fields was your second leading tackler with 71 tackles, a sack and a half, did intercept a pass, and forced 2 fumbles last season. And he's got some really good pieces around him. Sifa Leota is back to play the Mike linebacker role, while Colby Fields is going to be that Will. And then at the star position, a guy who can also drop back in coverage as a defensive back, Makai Mason, I think, is another really talented piece. The depth behind them, going to be very young, and you got some questions about it, maybe besides the senior transfer and Benji Johnson, who enters from Austin Peay. I think he's going to be a good piece that'll probably more likely play backup minutes, but who knows, could throw his way into a starting role. He does have to sit behind Colby Fields, however. But the linebacking unit, I think, going to be a very dangerous one for this defense, and the secondary. While many dynamic defensive back players are going to be gone here, you do lose some really, really important pieces, such as DeMarcus Griffin-Taylor, who is a really good defensive back for this unit last year, among just many other really talented pieces. You do see a lot return to the secondary, including another guy last name Fields, Jacob Fields. I don't know if there's any relation. If there's any Bulldog fans, please let me know, because I am simply very curious. But Jacob Fields is coming back to play that free safety role for you, and was a monster last year. Did lead the team in interceptions. I know they only forced 5 in total, but had 2 of those 5 for pass defended, and was a top 5 tackler. You can't really beat that. Jakari Foster, Cedric Woods, a nice returning piece who had 5 passes defended, tied for the team lead last year. And then a transfer opposite the likes. Whoa, where'd that go? Sorry, my thing went away. A transfer opposite of Cedric Woods in the cornerback room, and Noah Bigelow with some transfers and good returners entering in the back end there as well. Special teams, your kicker and punter is going to change, and that's your special teams report, because kickers are people too. So overall, when I take a look and break down this team, I think the line of scrimmage is going to be very, very pivotal when you talk about La Tech this year. If the offensive line does not get better, I don't care what the rest of the offense looks like. Maybe you see some increased production. Okay, sure. Your offensive line has got to be the heart and soul of your offense always. I know people talk, and I've said it on this channel before, quarterback, the most important position on the field. You could argue it's the offensive line. And defensively, you worry about that defensive line. When you compare them to the linebacker and defensive back room, it is not as experienced in terms of playing time last year, and it has the most new faces, both returning guys that are playing bigger roles, as well as transfers that enter the room. So I think the line of scrimmage going to be very, very big keys here for Louisiana Tech, because as you read into this team and take a look at this schedule that they will play in 2025, I mean, it really is going to be a massive key. If the line of scrimmage is not strong, good luck playing a lot of these teams in Conference USA that I think are going to be pretty darn good. Hey, let's go ahead and take a look at some FanDuel odds. Of course, they're from the good people at FanDuel. And no, I said it earlier in this video, I'm not a betting expert. Don't let me tell you what to do with your money. You earned it. You should do what you want with it. I am not an expert. It just does provide some good context to how good the odds makers think the Bulldogs are going to be this year. And hey, the odds makers think they're going to win a bowl game. Even if the under hits, that's still 6 wins. And they have the 3rd best odds to win the conference. So okay, people are liking Louisiana Tech this year, and I don't blame them, mainly because this has to be the year that they find some success. Well, can they? I think they're going to start off on the right foot in a game against Southeastern Louisiana. I don't think they're going to have much trouble there, and you get to play another in-state team, although this one is not going to go as well for you. Need I say more than Garrett Nussmeier is a Heisman contender? You have a sophomore running back in Caden Durham looking to explode, one of the best wide receiver rooms in the entire country, and a defense that's only going to get better under Blake Baker in year 2. Yeah, LSU is going to be one of the best teams in the country, and guys, that team is a national championship contender. La Tech goes 1-1 throughout their first 2. I don't think that is that hard to sniff out. You get some home games coming up next. The first one against a conference opponent in New Mexico State. Now, I know the Aggies did not have the best season last year. However, I would not be sleeping on New Mexico State this year because of some of the transfers they brought in. I think they're going to see improvement, and Logan Fife at quarterback is going to be a big reason why. He's seen a ton of experience, most notably during his time at Fresno State, was at Montana last year, and so now comes back over to the FBS level to be the quarterback in Las Cruces. However, I don't think that this is a defense in New Mexico State can keep up with what Louisiana Tech wants to do offensively, which I believe this year they're going to want to throw the football more. This is an offense that I think is built, especially for who you have at quarterback, to throw the football more often than you ran the ball. And it was the opposite last year. I don't think New Mexico State's secondary is going to be able to handle that, especially in your cornerback room on the outside. Now, DeCarrick Hobbs is a really good corner for that Aggie team, but I do believe that La Tech will be able to overpower them and win that game. Southern Miss, I do see being a win, but you don't count out the Golden Eagles this year. Why? Well, Charles Huff is entering as the head coach. He is leaving Marshall. That's a theory for another video on why he did that. But he is leaving Marshall to come be the quarterback here. I'd say come be the head coach here. Speaking of quarterback, you get Braylon Braxton, the guy that has seen power 4-time, most notably at Virginia Tech. So this is a Southern Miss team that was at the bottom of college football last year. I think they're going to get better this year. Is it still going to be a great season? No, probably not. And I think the Eagles have some good pieces to give the Bulldogs a fight. But I do think Louisiana Tech will win that game. However, I do not think they will be so lucky on the road for their first road conference game when they play the UTEP Miners. Despite some of the pieces that UTEP did lose, I like the direction that Scotty Walden is pushing this team. I thought they'd be a little bit better last year. It turns out that they were not, but Skylar Locklear is going to be coming back at quarterback, which I think is huge. You get some good wide receiver pieces back. Cash Cheeks is a transfer tight end coming in here that I actually really like, coming over from Northern at Colorado. And when you take a look defensively, I don't know if any level is going to be super spectacular, but they do have some really good pieces in each level of this defense, and I think UTEP takes a step forward this year under Scotty Walden. When you take a look at some of the teams in the mid-tier here in Conference USA, I'm talking about the 2 newcomers like Delaware, Missouri State. UTEP can absolutely be thrown into that mix. New Mexico State, even a team like FIU, Middle Tennessee. I think there's going to be a lot of really good competition and a lot of battling and a lot of back and forth with the wins and the losses. I think UTEP is going to be one of those teams that can overall have a pretty solid season this upcoming year, and I do believe that they get this one done against UTEP at home. However, second straight road game, and you get a bye beforehand, plus it's to an opponent that I don't think is going to be as good as UTEP. It's Kennesaw State. However, in me saying that, Kennesaw State returns a bunch of their talent from last season. I believe they are top 10 in returning production. And if they're not top 10, they are at very least top 15. And to add on to everything they have coming back, they have some really good portal pieces coming in. Dexter Williams at quarterback, Coleman Bennett at running back, who was over at Rice, formerly at Bucknell, that I think is a really good piece for him. Chase Belcher is over from West Georgia. That's a really good piece. And defensively, I think you return a lot, if not most, of your defense. However, in saying all of that, I say that to make the Bulldog fans not necessarily worry. Well, maybe a little bit. That's not necessarily my intention, but you got to be careful looking at Kennesaw State this year. This can be a dangerous Owls team. Do I think they beat La Tech? No, as the green text over there will show. But I do think the Owls can be dangerous this year if some of these transfers fit in, and with all the returning production they have coming back. I mean, you put two and two together. In this case, it kind of fits like that, right? I think you got to watch out for him, but La Tech is more talented, and I think should be able to win that game. And I think La Tech stays hot. You also get another bye week before yet another weekday game, this one on Tuesday against probably one of the best teams in Western Kentucky. I already talked that this Kennesaw State team not going to be as good as Louisiana Tech. Well, Western Kentucky is probably going to be better, at least from a talent perspective. They're always on top of Conference USA. They are the brand, maybe besides the Liberty Flames, in this conference. And I think La Tech takes them down this year. Western Kentucky has a lot of overhaul. You're breaking in a new quarterback, some new running back pieces, basically an entirely new wide receiver room, at the very least, an entirely new starting core of wide receivers, and pretty much your entire defensive front seven, with the exception of Anthony Brackenridge, a senior returning linebacker, are going to be transfers, are going to be guys that are coming in through the portal. Now, Tyson Helton is a really good coach, and Western Kentucky has one of the strongest foundations out of anybody in this conference. Western Kentucky is going to struggle at points this year, I believe. And this one, I think Louisiana Tech has got the talent to do it. I think they have the air raid offense to take advantage of the secondary, and I think they have the defensive pieces, as they showed last year. They put everything together, and if they can force some sacks and turnovers, I really like the way they match up here against Western Kentucky. However, after that game, and I very well am aware that they could absolutely lose that game and win one of the games I'm about to project them to lose, but I do not think that this we'll say fourth of the season, take it or leave it, back fourth of the season is going to be very kind to him. In fact, not back fourth, back third. Sorry, there you go, back third. Sam Houston State. Watch out for the Bearcats this year. Even though they did lose a lot of pieces, including their head coach, Casey Keeler, Phil Longo is going to be that head coach, and he's very familiar with this system. You do get a returning quarterback in Hunter Watson, who I think is going to be a really good quarterback this year, just as he was last. Well, okay, let's be honest. He was pretty okay last year. I think he's going to be pretty good this year. You got some good portal pieces coming in, especially defensively, to help revamp that defense. They might stumble their way through non-conference play, the Bearcats, but when they get in the conference play, I think they're going to be a wagon, and they beat Louisiana Tech here. And if you were to ask me, which of the two teams coming into the FBS level between Delaware and Missouri State, of which Louisiana Tech has to play both, that's going to be the more successful side? And I think that's going to be Delaware. So now you maybe know where my Missouri State pick is going, but I do think this is the team that's going to lose to Delaware. A lot of experience, good trench play. I think overpowers La Tech, and Delaware wins that one on what we've seen in the past. Look at what James Madison did. Look at what Jacksonville State has done. Some success really, really early in year one in their FBS tenure. On the road against Washington State and at home against Liberty, I think are going to be two really tough games to win. This road game against Washington State, I know how much they lost. Their head coach is over now at Wake Forest. Their quarterback is now over at Oklahoma, so on and so forth. This is the Washington State team that gets Jimmy Rogers as their head coach. If Zevi Eckhouse can perform the way that he did at Bryant with this Cougar program, I still think they got a good skill position room. I think the defense is going to surprise some people. And I think overall, Washington State's going to be a little bit of a shock this year. Not necessarily a team that wins 10 games out of nowhere, but a team you're going to look at and say, I didn't expect them to be that good. That's the way I think Washington State's season will play out. And they beat La Tech here. And Liberty does so. Liberty is still, much like Western Kentucky, extremely, extremely talented, even without Caden Salter and Quentin Cooley, who both leave the program. I think Liberty is still a really, really good unit. Really good team coached by Jamie Chadwell, and I think they're one of the favorites in the G5 realm to get into the college football playoff. I did telegraph my Missouri State prediction a little bit earlier, but usually, I should say last time that we had teams enter the room, which was Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State together, one did really well, Jack State, and the other did not, Sam Houston. I think that's going to be the case here with Delaware and Missouri State. Delaware does well. Missouri State struggles to adjust to the FBS level. So overall, you take a look at the schedule and you take a look at how I'm predicting it. 6-6 is what I've got. Now, is that going to be enough to satisfy some of the more hungry Bulldog faithful? Probably not. Is it going to give the athletic director and the athletic department a look at Sonny Coombe and saying, You got us this year, Sonny. We'll give you another shot here and extend his tenure. It absolutely could do that. I still think 6-6, the over/under win total would tell you it's probably going to feel like a little bit of a disappointment, especially because look at the way your schedule sets up. You can beat UTEP on the road, you can beat Delaware on the road, and you get some of the tougher teams in the conference at home. Western Kentucky, Sam Houston State, Liberty. You get those guys at home. So if this is a La Tech team that truly has improved their trench play and is starting to get everything clicking, I think they can reach as many as 8, probably even 9 wins. However, with the way this team is, too many questions for me in trench play, and I got them going 6-6. Let me know what you guys think about the Bulldogs, though, in the section below. Hey, we made it through with audio. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See y'all later today when we talk about Coastal Carolina. Goodbye.